Hope everybody's doing well tonight. This is episode 17 of Karl's Spirit Month. Hope everybody's doing well and you're having a great day on this Thursday. Tonight we're going to again have a pour of a bourbon that I really didn't think I would ever review. And that's going to be from Jim Beam. This is Jim Beam Extra Aged Black. Again, this is not the everyday white label Jim Beam. This is the black label extra aged Beam. Again, tonight this is made possible by our friends at Barrel 131. Please consider Barrel 131 for your spirit needs. If you find yourself a little short on a pour of something kind of special during this very trying time, Barrel is still doing curbside pickup, so give our friends a call. Order a drink of something special and enjoy. But, help our local folks out. And that's our people at Barrel 131 who help sponsor tonight. Beam, of course, is probably the best known name in bourbon lore. A lot of the distillers working for many different distilleries today are related to the Beam family in some fashion, through marriage, through descent, whatever. And whether you like Beam or not, their family has left an indelible mark on the bourbon industry. The Jim Beam story, I like my little history piece here, actually starts well before Jim Beam. Back in 1740, the Beam family, that's B-O-E-H-M, Beam, arrived in America from Germany. And ultimately their descendant arrived in what is now Kentucky, and Americanized their name to the name we all know of Beam, B-E-A-M. In 1795, Jacob Beam, this is the second generation, sold his first batch of Old Jake Beam Sour Mash Whiskey, and it quickly became a local favorite. The company passed from father to son, and then to his grandson, who was a gentleman by the name of James Beam, or Jim for short. And this happened right around the early 1890s. He continued to produce the family spirit, and it sold throughout the country. Did well. Prohibition stops all that very quickly. He's unable to secure a medicinal spirits license, and Beam is forced to close their doors. The distillery sold off for scrap. There's nothing left. Jim Beam did nothing for 13 years as far as the bourbon world is concerned. When Prohibition ended, Jim Beam got right back into it. He's 70 years old. And with the help of family and friends, he rebuilt the distillery in 4 months. We've all seen the commercial on TV, right? With everybody out raising the new warehouse and the new distillery. And 2 years later, he sold the first batch of James Beam bourbon. And since then, the distillery has passed from father to son, and ultimately his great-grandson, Fred No, the current master distiller, and his son, Freddie, waiting in the wings to take over. It's a rich history for a very storied family in bourbon lore. This particular expression, Jim Beam Extra Aged Black, debuted somewhere between 7 and 10 years ago. It started out as an 8-year bourbon. And back in 2016, 2017, they changed that simply to extra aged, although the company says this is a 6-year-old bourbon. And that's kind of what they're selling it as. The mash bill for this is the typical bean profile of 77% corn, about 13% rye, and 10% barley or so. This one is bottled at a very light 86 proof. In the glass for this one, this has a gorgeous color, and the sun comes out right now as we're talking about color. It's got a really nice copper color on it. Looks great in the glass. It's got relatively average lines, nothing special about them. It doesn't really jump. It's not like that early times bottled in bond we did last evening. On the nose, it starts out very sweet. I get a lot of sweet smells here. The little light oak follows that. Maybe a little light vanilla. It's a very light nose all the way through, and then kind of just fades. Yeah, I really can't get much more off that. It just starts out sweet, goes to that light oak note, and maybe a little light vanilla, and it just kind of fades away fairly quickly after that. You're drinking bourbon. It's a typical bourbon profile. Little oak, little caramel, little vanilla, but it doesn't linger. It doesn't sit on your palate. There's no extra flavors that pop out and say, hey, check me out. They don't demand your attention. It's just a pretty straightforward bourbon profile. There's nothing there's nothing fancy with that. It's just straightforward, really kind of down to earth, little earthy taste maybe. As far as the finish, I'm going to have to say it's a very light finish. It's kind of like the nose. It's a very light finish. It's a short finish. It starts with a little spice and then quickly fades and ultimately just kind of poof, disappears. That's my take on that. It's just not a good mouthfeel bourbon. It's very thin. It just doesn't pop. I feel like this is that bourbon that says, yes, I'm a bourbon. You're drinking bourbon is what you're drinking with this. There's nothing special here. Just kind of move along, go about your business. For a $25 bottle, I would say this is a great bottle to have on your shelf, though. You want it for that uncle or that cousin who comes over on Thanksgiving and wants to pour some of your good bourbon into his Diet Coke or her Diet Coke. That would be what I would sell this as. I would make sure that the cousin who came over, I would say, hey, this is that extra age. Just got that great flavor. Go ahead and put that in your Diet Coke and see how that goes for you. Beam, of course, claims this is their world's highest ranking, or America's best-selling bourbon, I guess, is what they call this. And the only thing I can say to that is I guess it would be because it's cheap, and most Americans are too cheap to pay more. Would be my best estimate. If I want a good bean product, I would pay $10 more and go $32 and buy a bottle of Knob Creek. My Karl ranking on this. First of all, I think the color is the best thing about this, and the history. I like the history story. It's cool. This is a hard 2 stars for me. There's nothing fancy, and it's just really kind of short on all those notes that I think make a really great bourbon, or even a really good bourbon. I know that Jim Beam Black Extra Aged has quite the following. There's a lot of great things out there said about it. There's several people who told me personally they really think this is a good bourbon. And it's not bad. It's just nothing at all special. I'm just not getting it. Sorry. Anyway, guys, that's my thoughts on Jim Beam Extra Black. I want to thank our folks at 131. Again, please help them out. Barrel, it's a great place. As always, I want everyone to stay safe, peace, and happy pours.